Hey, this is the Misery Loves Company social reading series again. This is, I guess, maybe I have fucking COVID. Who knows? Edition. um, as usual, if you've been watching these things at home, you'll know that we have every week we have a really wonderful assortment of transgressive and outsider and independent writers come and read, and we're doing that a fucking again. So I'm not going to belabor this thing. First up to read, I will, when someone reads, I'll be putting links to their work in the Zoom chat and also up on Twitter unless they've requested otherwise. So first up, I believe, is Derek. Are you here, Derek?
I am. Can you hear me?
Sound good. You sound good.
Awesome.
So you're going to be reading a piece that was just very recently published in Scab, right?
Yes, the most recent issue of Scab, issue 7, which came out this week.
Awesome. Well, take it away.
I will, as soon as I figure out which direction. There we go. My computer goes. So this is titled Name and Date of Birth. I didn't tell the cops or the doctors anything. I just sat there like a blob and stared through their questions. It was like that for 3 weeks. That's the longest they could keep me, I guess. But whatever. Now I feel like telling someone the fucking truth about it. First, though, check this out. It makes me uncomfortable. I do not feel safe around him. Unpredictable, impulsive, irrational. Yeah, those are exact quotes from so-called witness statements, like in my record. They have to let you look at it. These are things supposedly said about me. Kind of funny. On May 13th, aka the day in question, I woke up around noon. A visiting band was staying with us, so the living room was a mess of bodies. It smelled terrible. They were going to play a house show later that night. I sat on the front porch drinking a beer and smoking cigarettes, waiting for people to wake up. At 2 p.m., no one was awake yet, and I was still drinking beer and smoking cigarettes on the front porch. I started thinking about killing myself. Just because I was bored and no one was there to talk to. If someone was there to talk to, I could think about whatever we were talking about, but I was alone, so I thought about killing myself. Abstractly, not like planning anything. This is why I had to sit there all mute and stupid for 3 weeks, because if I admit that, then I'm through. They'll chain me up and feed me The Price is Right in little slices of lemon in plastic water cups for the rest of my fucking life. But there's nothing irrational about thinking about killing yourself. It's the most rational. For 6 weeks in 2014, I was very big into philosophy. I listened to a lot of podcasts about the subject. Deciding whether or not to kill yourself is a fundamental question of philosophy. If you tell your brain to stop thinking about killing yourself, it will just think about killing yourself even more. So you have to be very zen about the whole thing and just go with the flow. This too shall pass. That's another philosophy thing. At 4:30 p.m., Steve dropped by and asked if I wanted to box. He knew I liked getting my ass kicked. We went downstairs to the basement and put some gloves and headgear on. John B. was designated the official in charge. Gentlemen, touch gloves. We touched gloves. Steve looked a little wobbly. For a second, I thought I might surprise him. Then he whacked me fucking hard on the right side of my head. The padding softened the blow, but it still hurt. I took my headgear off and threw it at him. It landed on the dirt floor. I told him to fight me like a man. I was filled up and shooting spittle, trying to fang my way through sentences. Steve laughed and the fight was over. John B. declared him the winner by forfeit. He started to write it down in the official notebook, which was a record of all the basement fights. I asked him to please say it was due to a technical knockout. He complied. Then I was back upstairs and it was some other time, but dark outside. The band was fiddling with strings, plugging things in. I picked up one of the guitars. "Dude, what are you doing?" asked a guy in the band. I was imagining the strings were strings of yarn, and I'm strumming so fucking hard, but the threads don't make a sound, I thought. "Nothing," I said, and handed him his stupid guitar. I announced to the room I was going to check on Nate. No one even looked at me. They just kept on getting ready for their performance. In Nate's room, they were smoking opium, so I smoked opium too. It felt like, Google what it's supposed to feel like when you smoke opium, is what it felt like. Or smoke it yourself. I truly don't care. The band was playing. I'm skipping over some stuff, obviously, but it's exhausting just recounting. Live in the moment. In a moment, I'm going to be on the couch watching the band play. It's loud. It sounds like loud. In a moment, I'm going to start pinching the little bit of skin at the top of my shaft right underneath the head of my penis and rubbing it clockwise like I'm trying to start a fire with the skin. I'm trying to start a fire with the skin. No one is watching me. No one cares. In a moment, I'm going to come, but first I imagine what I'm going to do with that cum. I want to catch it in my hand and throw it at one of the boys in the band. That's what I want to do. I was thinking about killing myself earlier because I couldn't think of anything to do. Everything has been done or thought, said, felt. It's all just repeating itself into a spiraling void. Now I've thought of something to do. I'll come right here in this living room is what I'll do. I can't think about killing myself when I'm so singularly focused on such an awesome task. The philosophy podcast stopped being interesting, which is why I don't study this stuff anymore. I figured out pretty quickly that people much, much smarter than me had spent much, much more time worrying about why there's anything at all and had come up with no answers. None. No one could say. So I knew there was no answer, or the answer would never be revealed, which is the same thing except worse. Then I learned that thought, which I had all on my own, was already an existing philosophy and quite popular at that. And then I just got really pissed about the whole thing and what a waste of time it all was. Thinking about something other than killing myself was making me harder and harder. My knees started to jerk, my toes curled. The band was so loud, the space was so small, everyone was dancing. There were at least 20 people dancing. Hips, limbs, hair. I had a San Francisco 49ers official NFL memorabilia blanket over me, and I was squeezing the base of my dick with my right hand and clockwise trying to light the skin on fire faster and faster, faster and faster, faster and faster with my left hand. A sad little puddle of cum appeared on my stomach. I pulled my boxer briefs up over the puddle, let myself be sticky, and just sat in it. I tossed the blanket off me. I was in the refractory period. I pulled my pants over my boxer briefs and stood up. The band had stopped playing, and the people left in the room were staring at me. Some of them were shouting at me. Some of them were throwing things. I saw fresh vomit on the floor. The whole scene was hysterical. I wasn't thinking about killing myself anymore. Bet you weren't expecting that, I thought, inside my head, and also outside my head at the top of my lungs, right as they were taking me away.
First of all, I loved your delivery on that. I just like you perfectly captured the like that very like nihilistic teenage kind of vibe with your delivery. So I really appreciated that. I also really just loved the piece because as someone who like I think you perfectly captured the kind of like psychology of like suicidal ideation as someone who's been there and been there and been there. I think you really get at like that sense of just like the like absurd fixation on it, and like also that tendency to like be self-critical and to like think that even like your own thoughts are worthless on some level. Like I love the thing where he realizes that like his what he thought was an original thought, that like basically not that nihilism was something that people had subscribed to for like thousands and thousands of years before him, and that's a very like sad teenager moment right there, I think.
Right.
Like realizing, like coming to the conclusion, like coming to a nihilistic conclusion and then realizing that you're not the first nihilist in the world. I don't know, it's beautiful. I thought it was a great piece.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up is Tyler. You still with us,
All right.
Tyler?
Yeah. I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. Great.
Okay. Let me pull it up.
Quick question about the piece you sent. Do you want me to link to that one on Twitter or not?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. I'm never sure with pieces that are unpublished because sometimes they're drafts and sometimes people are not comfortable like sharing them with the world just yet. So
Well, I think the link is set to expire tomorrow, but I don't really give a shit if it does.
gotcha.
Okay. So, Derek, I was typing in the chat. I love the line, puddle of cum appeared, or something that captures the essence of an underwhelming nut so much. Anyway, let me pull that up. Okay. This one's called 100% Beef. It had been a slow day. Crime was supposed to go up in the heat. That was the conventional wisdom, yet Ray had been circling the West Loop in triple-digit heat since 10 this morning without managing anything bigger than a vehicle break-in. He was about to pack it in and log out when a notification popped up. Urgent. Unknown disturbance at Taco Bell. Hostage negotiator required. Ray groaned. He had forgotten he'd clicked hostage negotiation under skills and qualifications on his application when he signed up for COPS. Like most of his application, it was fudged. He had figured the rhetoric and persuasion class he took at Amazon U counted. He'd gotten a B after all. As it turned out, he needn't have bothered because everyone started out at the same rate no matter how many boxes you clicked. Now he's expected to actually negotiate with someone, with lives possibly hanging in the balance. Ray wanted badly to turn down the call, and almost certainly would have, but he needed to pay his back lease by Thursday or his car was going to get bricked. This was a fat ticket. Be stupid not to at least try. Ray sighed and hit accept. Proprietary pink and blue COPS lights affixed to the side mirrors lit up. The car made a U-turn as soon as it was clear and drove briskly toward the address. Ray sat back and shotgunned a can of Dr. Reefer to get in the mood. The Taco Bell in question was located, damn it, lost my place. There we go. Sorry about that. Taco Bell in question was located on a frontage road adjacent to Tigan Boulevard. Google listed the store as closed, and the store's auto security was directing cars away from it. Ray hit the manual override, gripped the wheel in a gentle turn, and glided to a stop in the near empty parking lot. Lobby and exterior lights were dimmed. Through the windows, Ray could see the staff in their neon-colored uniforms standing stock still at their posts, eyes downward. These must be the hostages. But who was holding them hostage? Starting to feel loose and expansive from the drink, Ray exited his car and stepped up to the locked door. Made sure the body cam clipped to the collar of his t-shirt was on and got his stinger out of its holster. Puffing up into his best cop stance, he tapped on the locked glass with the stinger's barrel. "Hello," he shouted. "Cops here." A series of bell-like tones was heard inside. Ray recognized it as Bing Bong, a language mostly consisting of commands used by the service industry to manage multilingual workforces. The man behind the cash register, a dark Asian man in his 40s, perked up like a robot coming online. He hit a button on his POS screen. Holographic letters appeared in front of Ray's face with a loudspeaker helpfully reading the message it spelled. "We apologize. Our lobby is temporarily closed due to," there was blank space here. "Please allow us to serve you at our drive-thru." So the hostage taker wanted to negotiate through the Taco Bell's drive-thru. Ray supposed that was all right. He hadn't watched any of the training videos about negotiation procedure, and honestly, that was safer than anything he might have come up with. He got back in his car, pulled into the drive-thru lane, and rolled down his window to address the speaker. "Hi," he said. "So what's the story, man?" The speaker crackled. Someone was clearly on the other end of the line. Ray could hear someone breathing heavily. Ray repeated the question in Lao. He hadn't spoken Lao since he was a kid, and he hoped he wouldn't have to continue, but there was still no answer. Ray switched to Spanish, which he spoke even worse, but still the speaker remained silent. He could still hear plenty of breathing and electronic crackles, as well as some weird scrapes and bumps. The hologram showing the value menu jiggled and flickered. Ray began to suspect he was being had. He put his foot on the gas and gripped the wheel with one hand and his stinger with the other. Suddenly, the metallic mesh of the speaker burst open. Before Ray could react, the world blinked out of existence. He came to after a short while. For a second, Ray thought he died. He patted his body to make sure he was still solid. He touched his steering wheel, his phone, his stinger. Everything checked out. He was still sitting in his idling car, parked exactly where he'd been, and it was still dusk outside, so obviously not too much time had passed. Something was different, though. Ray felt twitchy, excitable, as if there were a current running down his spine, animating his limbs with phantom impulses. His foot jiggled on the pedal. His skin crawled. He winced as he became aware of a harsh screech in his ears, like several different frequencies of electronic feedback, chorused and layered millions of times. The overall feeling was not unlike being high on a powerful stimulant. but with the sensory effects turned up to a much more intense degree, while Ray's thoughts ran beneath the din more or less as normal, like a cold current moving beneath the ocean. Ray's brain was so burdened by these novel sensations, he didn't notice his hand moving toward the shifter by itself. He willed his hand to stop and immediately felt a straining sensation deep in his mind, like he was lifting a heavy weight. He relaxed the mental grip on his hand and it began moving again. He stopped it, and the weight returned. It looked like whatever was happening inside him, he could only resist it for short bursts of time. Ray decided to let whatever was going to happen happen until he had more of an idea what to do. No sense tiring himself out right away. He relaxed once more, and his foot met the gas. Ray drove to the drive-through window and unceremoniously climbed out of his car window into the store. The staff were still petrified. Somehow, Ray knew there was no manager on premises. A lot of fast food managers did it from home these days. He looked up at a little security camera in the corner. Ray walked over, touched the cable, collecting it to the wall, and instinctively made a quick little snap, as if snuffing out a candle with his fingers, only inside his brain. The camera drooped and the light dimmed. Ray remembered his body cam was still running and snuffed it out too. Ray's finger found a light switch, and the sudden flood of fluorescent light made his eyes hurt. Finding a POS terminal, he hit the manager login, followed by a rapid series of buttons he couldn't identify. A bing-bong sentence played over the store's loudspeaker. "Close it up," it said. How had Ray understood that? You weren't supposed to be able to interpret bing-bong unless you'd had the right hypnocoding. The employees jumped to life and started milling around, pitching leftovers, lifting dishes into the sink, sweeping, drawing mop water. Ray climbed back through the drive-through window and picked up his phone. His fingers began rapidly moving over the screen, and dialog boxes opened and closed too fast for Ray to absorb the text. Whatever he told cops didn't appear to set off any immediate alarms, and he sped away from the store. Ray's psyche settled back and watched his body maneuver the car down Teigen Parkway at a breakneck pace, manual the whole way, still with the cops' lights on, weaving effortlessly in and out of automated traffic. He was hauling ass. At one point, Ray tried to engage the auto drive, more out of curiosity than anything, but both hands were stuck fast to the wheel as if drawn by a powerful magnet. He looked slowly from side to side, confident that his hands and feet would keep the car on the road by themselves, and he saw bored commuters playing video games, blacking out the windows to jack off to porn hollows, and occasionally goggling at Ray as he blew past them. Ray couldn't blame them. They must think he was a maniac. Ray wondered what exactly had happened to him. Had he maybe been dosed with something? Or had someone tagged him with a chip bug? That sounded plausible. He heard about gangs who went around chip bugging unsuspecting people. Thing burrowed into your brain and let you be played by like a video game character. The guys on the other end made you rob banks and stuff. But no, Ray realized it couldn't be. You were supposed to black out when you were bugged. So what was going on here? Ray tried to think on the problem, but his brain was dull and raw from countless unwelcome sensations. A violent shift in his seat ended his train of thought as the car made a tire-squealing turn. Ray looked around. They were pulling into an Amazon logistical center. Beyond the security fence and the huge warehouses lay a vast field of missile silos. Ray could see a trail of white smoke from a recent rocket launch against the deep blue of the darkening sky. He began to get out his wallet and phone, but to his surprise, the gate swung right open and the tire spikes retracted into the ground to let his car through. Interesting. Ray thought back to the crazy dance he'd been doing on his phone's keyboard. He must have somehow hacked into the COPS app and activated the skeleton key protocol without filing an actual case report. Whoever was controlling him had to be some sort of hacker genius. The only employee behind the customer service counter was a white girl who looked about 20. Ray saw her discreetly push an open can of Dr. Reefer behind a desk partition. In a voice that was bolder than his own, Ray heard himself tell the girl, "I'm Steve from COPS." He got out his phone to flash his badge, which now had the name Stephen Muster on it. "I'm investigating some postal meter fraud," he barked. "Would you step away from your computer, please?" The girl stared at him with weed-reddened eyes and wordlessly scooted away on her swivel chair. Ray got on the computer. With his left hand, he began typing on the keyboard. His fingers became a blur. His right hand moved toward the printer. He touched the panel on the side, felt a quick jerk like two magnets clicking together, and all of a sudden his mind was partially inside the printer. He could see the printing laser and move it like it was a part of his own body. A prismatic shape formed in his imagination. Ray let the laser drift this way and that for a few minutes, recreating the shape, and then ejected what he'd printed. At nearly the same time, he hit a command on the keyboard, and the printer spit out another piece of paper to follow the first. When he looked down into the tray, he saw that he had produced a brand new shipping label and a sticker with a QR code on it. I think I have all the evidence I need, Ray told the counter girl. I'll continue my investigation and be in contact if I need anything else. He turned toward a shelf and grabbed a small cardboard box. Mind if I grab one of these? My cat loves them. The girl nodded, and Ray walked away from the counter. Only instead of heading toward the exit, Ray took a right down the hall. He disabled an electronic lock with the same trick he'd used on the camera and came out into a room with what looked like miles and miles of conveyor belts, carrying packages of various sizes. Robots and the occasional human hurried about, too busy to pay Ray any mind. Ray set the package down on a table, expertly affixed the label on the QR code, and leaned over to insert his head in the box. An uncomfortable sensation like coughing up a big chunky loogie ensued. Ray blacked out again, and then, dizzy and shell-shocked from the sudden silence, looked into the box and gasped in shock. The box, which was empty a mere second ago, now contained a huge mass of quivering brown flesh. It looked like a pile of Taco Bell ground beef, about a single burrito's worth, but it was moving, crawling around by itself. A tendril shot out and gripped Ray's finger. Rapid-fire images flooded Ray's mind. Blackness cocooned him, and he came to life inside a huge metal vat. Ray recognized this kind of vat from a school field trip as a child. It was a kind of vat that grew cultured meat. Nearly 10 years ago, Taco Bell had made a big fuss of phasing out slaughtered meat entirely. They were the first major fast food chain to do it. By now, nearly every Taco Bell location had its own vat, pumping out vat-grown beef, chicken, and whatever other flesh the store needed. Ray remembered the guide on his field trip saying you had to keep the vats incredibly sanitary, keeping all foreign DNA out, or else you were liable to grow something you didn't want. The montage continued. Ray felt the creature's first stirrings of life, its discovery that it could move, its escape from the vat. The creature had no eyes, no nose, could not see or smell or taste, but it had an acute sense of touch and could even hear after a fashion by sensing vibrations in the ground and air. By far its strongest sense was its ability to detect electricity, magnetic fields, and all manner of radiation. Using these senses, the creature grew aware of its environment, figured out where to hide, where to find leftovers to eat. It felt drawn to the store's computer networks. It tapped into their Wi-Fi. It learned Bing Bong, and through Bing Bong learned English and half a dozen other languages, as well as every programming language in common use. The largest breakthrough came when the creature learned to use its internal bioelectricity to manipulate the signals it was listening to. Its mental powers grew at a geometric rate until it could communicate with and even hijack certain forms of technology. But as the creature's intelligence and perception grew, it also became more sensitive to all the ambient electromagnetism of the modern world happening all around it. Electric currents running through every wall, the EM fields produced by wired appliances and batteries, radio waves, infrared, microwaves, Wi-Fi, cell signals, 9G, vaporware. It was too much to handle. Electric screams haunted the creature every minute of the day, seared its mind like a tuna steak. Its life was agony. Luckily, the vastly intelligent creature had little trouble devising an escape plan. The quickest way off the planet was an Amazon rocket. Sneaking in on foot was too big a risk. An Amazon truck's anti-trafficking sensors, which can only be shut off from the inside, would detect the foreign biosign the second it entered the vehicle. But the personal vehicle of a law enforcement contractor, particularly one who worked for cops, official partners of Amazon, just might make the trip inside without raising too many eyebrows. The creature had entered Ray's brain through his sinus cavity and directed his movements from there. The human brain was an electrical device, after all. Hacking it was neither very different nor very much harder than hacking a computer. The QR code Ray had helped create had a virus encoded in it. The creature would ship itself to the moon on one of Amazon's rockets, but the guidance systems would go haywire en route, taking the rocket away from Earth and eventually out of the solar system entirely. All would be quiet, peaceful. Perhaps the creature would
Oh no, Tyler, I think you froze up right at the
Okay.
end too. What a cliffhanger.
Everyone do it so he doesn't feel weird.
Oh, are you still with us,
Oh.
Tyler? Was that for dramatic effect?
No.
I have blue plaid. I can do this.
Well, we'll wait.
They got him.
We'll wait a second here. See if he can kind of get things reconfigured.
No.
Oh, I think he just dropped.
Lost one of our own. Temporarily.
Aw.
He'll probably be back.
Yeah.
Poor- Oh, wow, that timing.
So who's that?
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, who's that? Oh no, we're gonna wait. Sorry.
We're gonna wait for Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hestia's after Tyler, but I do want to give Tyler a chance to get back, especially since
No,
I'm
it's
looking
okay.
at it and
I-
he was almost done here. So,
Yes. Yes.
let me check Twitter. And
Hello?
Hey, welcome
Hooray.
back.
Oh, there you are.
Is this me?
Okay.
I'm sorry, my internet went out for a little bit. How far along was I?
You were pretty far along. Let me see if I can find where you were. I know you were talking about the Amazon rocket going off it like fucking with the guidance system and getting the rocket to go off course.
Oh, okay. So you didn't miss very much then. Okay. All right. The creature would. Everyone ready?
Yep, we're good. We can hear you now.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Taking the rocket away from Earth and eventually out of the solar system entirely. All would be quiet, peaceful. Perhaps the creature would figure out how to direct the rocket to a new home. Perhaps it would slowly starve. Either way, its fate was in its own hands. Piercing howl of civilization would no longer torture it. Creature expressed gratitude as well as it was able, and instructed Ray to seal the box and slip it surreptitiously onto a certain conveyor belt. Ray did so. He turned around, walked out of the center in a daze, got into his car, and told AutoDrive to go back home. He leaned back, moaned, and rubbed his throbbing temples. He wondered if he should contact cops about this. He wondered what cops could even do. They believe him? Would he get paid for any of this? It was completely dark by now. Ray's phone dinged, and he opened it up. A bright screen irritating his sore eyes. That last question of his would answered at least. He got paid. To his great surprise, the payout he was expecting for that job had somewhere along the way increased by 8 or 9 zeros. Ray looked out the rear window at the rocket launch behind him and grinned, wondering if his erstwhile friend was on it. He could buy that rocket now if he wanted. Ray didn't go home that night. He deleted the Cops app from his phone and called a bunch of his friends to go out and hit the bars. They had a grand old time, and around 5 in the morning, when someone suggested going to get some Taco Bell, he gently steered them away.
Oh, that was great. I love the world building in that piece. You're always so great with like your mastery of like the details of those kind of intricate little world building details. Like I really felt like Red Mass was a really great piece of world building, even though it was like superficially set like on Earth. And I think this is another case where even though this is a more like overtly sci-fi kind of piece, like the world just comes together so perfectly, like all the Rent-A-Cop shit and like the references to vat grown beef and Amazon. like you really could imagine this happening 5 to 10 years from now, you know? And no, I loved it. I thought it was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd have to say ditto on the world building, because that I love the way it kind of bridges like where we're at in the modern time with kind of the Judge Dredd type aesthetic. I really got that kind of vibe from a lot of the world stuff, especially the taco meat part where the creature was made of that synthetic taco meat. That was great.
Yeah, I love how you managed to make the taco meat monster somehow like simultaneously horrifying and adorable. I really, really appreciate that.
Thanks.
And I like the idea of contaminant like getting into the taco meat and just like growing just like something else. Like it just seems like a very kind of weirdly plausible thing. It's like if you're going to be growing some kind of life form, like, you know, who knows what could go wrong.
I'm sure there's some science principle that says that's impossible, but you know, who cares?
It feels right.
Yeah, it does. I've never been like particularly enamored by hard sci-fi or anything that's like, you know what, we're all gonna be dead in 40 years. I don't give a fuck how the spaceship works, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. That kind of like really like obsession, that real obsession with like the nitty-gritty details of hard science fiction. It's often like a bore. I think like
And if I don't die in one of your lists, I'll be so disappointed, but also dead. So it won't matter.
so Hestia, I believe you're up next.
Howdy. So I'm gonna read the two smaller ones first, and then end it with the longer gut punch, basically.
Gotcha. That sounds good. I'll let you. I've got all three up right now. So when you say the title, I'll just drop the appropriate piece in the chat. And just so everyone else knows, Hestia is the last scheduled reader, but we are definitely going to have an open mic period afterwards. So if anyone would like to read, just say so in the chat. And Rudy, you'll be watching the chat, right? Uh-oh.
Yep, I got a notepad up here, so.
Cool. So Rudy will just track who signs up to read, and then after Hestia finishes, we'll start the open mic. Okay.
So the first one I'm going to read is titled Servant of Sin. Here we go. Drawing water from the dark, rotting chasms of humanity's sin, fill a pail with mankind's damned kin. For watering the garden of Babylon, the seed of the horror of the Babylon won't grow into toxic foul flowers without a little push. The sound of men running fills my ears till they're drowning. Smashing through the palace into the garden, they hold their torches high. Flooding the garden of sin with the blessed oil, they burst a bonfire. Before they can burn me in their holy pyre, I stuff myself with hemlock. May this death be as quick as man's brief innocence. And then the next one is titled Insane / me. I will break madness on my knee. I will shatter insanity's spine. Nothing can control me besides me. I am me am I. Insanity and madness are specters that others force down my throat. But I will not swallow these words. I will not be their toy. I am a two-eyed, four-limbed, one-hearted tool of God. The words used to hold me down and turn me into something less than human will be beaten like a fag in America. I am more than just a diseased mind. And then this last one, I'm going to give, I guess, a content warning for people. It includes, how do I phrase it? Talks about being raped as a child. So if you don't feel comfortable with that content and the trauma that results from that, then skip like the next, I don't know, like 5 minutes. I mean, not 5 minutes, I don't know, like 2 to 3 minutes. Anyways, this one is titled 7. When I was 7 years old, I tried to hang myself for the first time. I floated in the air for a minute or two as everything slowly faded. In those moments right before the news broke, I felt joy because I wouldn't have to be me anymore. Looking back, I don't think a child should be attempting suicide or be happy as they feel their soul escape their flesh. But what can I say? I mean, I had been having my stepdad beat me, rape me, shove his fingers up my ass, shove me down to my knees in the basement, and make me suck his dick for 3 years. He would do it again for another 7 afterwards. The smell of his breath as he raped me forever lingers on my nostrils, a wandering ghost in its tomb. Not to include all this shit happening while my mother neglected me, never told anyone, never tried to stop my torture. She could hear the screams, I know she could. The way she looked at me after one of the lessons, as he called them, her face was contorted into pure disgust at the sight of me, as if she would throw up just from the sight of my spoiled, rotten flesh. She still won't acknowledge what was done in her house to me. She won't acknowledge that I tried to kill myself 15 times from the ages of 7 to 14. When did you first try to kill yourself? Hopefully it wasn't as early as me. I pray you had it better. One of the worst things about these scars is they are permanent ruins carved deep into me, so I can never forget. And it's not like you can run from your own body. Can't shed my skin and run screaming out of it. The body that was violated, the body that was taken away from me. I still have a hard time viewing myself as anything but a sex object, to be exploited and discarded like empty heroin needles. And this body, I can't even fuck the people I want to when I want to. All too often I'll break down and remember him smiling as I screamed, the smile dripping with the radioactive taint of Satan. I'll never untangle all this barbed wire from my body, even as it recedes. The marks left in my heart, mind, and soul can never be erased. I'm not his, but I'm not sure if I'm mine. That's it.
Geez, I mean, it's difficult to know what to say, after someone shares a piece that's so obviously inspired by, like deep personal pain. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like you really, really captured something like deeply emotionally honest there that, like, as someone who's never had that sort of experience, I still felt points of like emotional connection to it, like as someone who has who was suicidal at a pretty young age, and who did deal with other kinds of abuse and stuff. Like, that hit really fucking hard, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you for, yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, William. And yeah, I definitely understand it being like hard to critique a piece like that, or even really like give feedback, because it's obviously like comes from somewhere deep and all that, as you're saying. But I didn't want it to be purely like you have to experience what I experienced
Right.
to feel that way. And I'm glad that you like, although like, again, ideally people at a young age would not be suicidal, but we live in a not great world, so
Right.
it happens. But yeah, I hoped it would connect to everyone's internal misery that they feel at various parts of their childhood or life in general, and the trauma that results, and how like even when you're out of it and you're getting better, like you can't forget those things. And that's why I use the barbed wire, because, well, anyone who's ever got caught in barbed wire knows it's really fucking hard to get out of it.
Yeah, no, the imagery that you used, I think, really did capture that like sense of being like entangled, not only in the situation, but like with yourself, and entangled in this terrible like emotional morass that you just can't get out of. So no, I think that, it feels a little weird and wrong to say that was a fantastic piece, but I think what I'm saying when I say, that I think it was a really emotionally effective piece.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and even like that last piece is obviously like very different from the writing that you usually do, but I wanted to say that your style is very like unique, and still came through even in like that different kind of piece, because like I've heard you read for I think 3 or 4 weeks now, and I've like honed in on that style that you have, and like I think it's a testament to your writing that the style comes through even in a like vastly different piece like that. So it's good.
Thank you. I still don't really know what I don't know what my fucking, I don't know what my style is really. I just kind of write and I don't really think about structure. I just kind of get, do the words that I think work.
But that's like what the best way it comes up, that's how you get a unique style, and I think it's working for you.
My favorite part of your pieces that you shared tonight are like how just prosaic and unpretentious they are, and how they like just really get into the mindset of someone desperately seeking answers and not ready for anything else. You know, it's just very immediate.
Answers and structure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thanks for letting me share that piece. I actually, I DM'd the Misery Tourism account beforehand because I just wanted to make sure that that content was like okay to share. I don't like, I don't want to make anyone feel, if someone else has been through similar things, I don't want to trigger any sort of PTSD or anything like that. So,
Well, like, what have I submitted to Misery Tourism? Like, like, I respect that. It's very nice.
Yeah, and I mean, like, as I'm sure you know, we take a really like unabashedly pro free speech stance at Misery Tourism, but like, what fucking good is that stance if people aren't allowed to share pieces that come from a place of like deep personal sincerity and pain? Like, yeah, it's one thing, like it's great to have like the the license to publish like edgelord bullshit or whatever, right? Like but by school shooter piece or something, but it's so much more important. Like this is like what makes that worth fighting for, not like the edgelord bullshit, right? like knowing that people have the chance to share in an unfiltered and unrelenting, I guess, way, like what they want to say, what they need to say. So Rudy, who do we have up in signed up for the open mic?
So it looks like OF Syria, are you in for it? I thought I saw you say something.
Yeah, but I think Eris was gonna go on next.
I mean, I don't know. She's kind of like panting a lot. Okay, all right.
Okay, so Eris and then O and
Exercise or something. Yes. Okay. Nothing. Go first. Go first. Go first. You suffered through the podcast with me.
Suffer to the podcast. I do have a quick question. Can anyone hear background noise? Because I know that someone else in my apartment. Also, can anybody hear the train?
It sounds kind of ominous, and I dig it.
I don't hear any background noise, and I hear you pretty clearly. So.
Okay. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so I'm also going to do a quick trigger warning. This is going to be a very different feel. This is definitely not going to be nearly as emotionally as intense. But I do want you guys to be aware that there is going to be some mentions of gore in this piece. And this is an unfinished piece, but I am really liking it so far. So I'm calling this fan fiction for right now. It's an ode to fan fiction, specifically from the pre-2012 era. So a little bit of personal nostalgia. So it's Razumkin Raskolnikov DS Blood Play, Praise Kink, Puppy Play, Hard M Rating, RPF, Hegel Marx, Body Worship. Nothing makes me happier than knowing that the two most popular fandoms in the AO3's Christian Bible fandom are Jesus Judas and Jesus Lucifer. Cross-tagging in Hebrew to the Talmud and Jewish folklore canon for 50 different headcanons on how hot King David was. Shaul's throat dry, the hollows under his tongue heavy with drool as the divine ruler holds court. People marry their waifus and husbandos in absentia like Mary and Christ. They write manifestos on social media about the traits to embody to make their spouse proud. Kids bond with anime characters so strongly they have visions. Cringe posts with Bakugo-kin demanding no doubles or Midoriya-kin. Obsessive thought patterns self-replicating compulsively. Afflicted minds seeing their objects of focus in everything, the way religious fever puts the Holy Mother on toast. I think this is a kind of love. I think in any other century, ecstasies this intense would be called spiritual. Renaissance philosophers knew that one-sided love came from internal projection, but they thought it could be formative. Therapy simping. Recognize the traits you admire in abstract to manifest them. It's not compulsive consumption if it devours the consumer. When the 2012 Les Mis movie came out, a generation gave themselves an education on the romantic art movement. Louise Boulanger's The Ordeal of Mazeppa and Charles Schwab's Spleen et Ideal did circuits on Tumblr. An Amazon Prime show made teen girls rediscover the religious ecstasy of Christian heretics who saw angels fucking in their backyard. And if FBI Propaganda is going to be a critically acclaimed TV series, then my consolation prize will be that the audience agrees that the production consultant's self-insert Mary Sue is a kinky power bottom with daddy issues. Ankles up, knees in hand, wingtips on the wall, a Hegao face while getting pounded by Ed Kemper. It makes books visceral. Read it with your whole body. Separate the text to view the many layers of intention in macro, from cellular to textual, symbolism to artistic intention, and then cram it up your ass. Vibrating Sibian attachment that looks like the spine of Moby Dick. I want a translation of Gilgamesh that includes the translator's opinion on Enkidu and Gilgamesh's favorite sex positions. If ancient Greek philosophers could build competing schools of thought over whether Achilles topped or not, then so can we. Give me more Priest play, Dracula, fucking Jonathan Harker stupid, PWP, Nurse Ratched, Dubcon, Anima play. God, I miss kink memes, up to 50 pages of anonymous posting with real fucking gems hidden in it. Post that read skull fuck, gore, character death, comments read, bonus if his thoughts get more disorganized as he dies. Knife play gone wrong, surgery porn, dick flower, description. I'm looking for hurt comfort with permanent mutilation, no death. One blank subject line with a description that read, I want a fic where Sherlock Holmes ties rubber bands around his cock until there's no blood flow so that when he cuts it off, the incision is neat. Bonus if he keeps it in 221B, either in a jar or salted like in the Adventures of the Cardboard Box. She's not done. Another thread, no title. Sherlock Holmes is clipping his toenails when he accidentally clips the glands off his penis. Namespace loves it. Will someone please scoop our hero's nuts out in the meme before she does it IRL? The Dick Shredder is our queen. She must be paid in tribute. With her royal key, she unlocked the hidden door in all our brains that kept the secret thoughts inside. How far can we push this until we hit a wall? What's worse than cutting off your dickhead with nail clippers? Someone takes dick shredding to the logical conclusion and requests a dick burger with testes after Ishmael fucks a grinder. Why stop at the crotch? Someone else adds the intestines and requests Link watch as every inch gets turned into pulp. If only the Quentin Tarantino threads were preserved. There's only so far to go with teen angst, but sacred intellectual property makes potent fertilizer. Imagine if the monster was born in Morningwood and fitted inside Frankenstein. Mary Shelley had one of the biggest ideas of her time when she asked what science could do. Now we get to cross those wires and wonder, if Victor comes, is it incest? If God wasn't dead before, would that kill him? What would kill the author? And how do we get them next?
That
Oh,
was
wow.
fucking hilarious. That
That's-
fucking killed me. It really did. I want to say though, I really, really appreciated like the intermingling of like the sacred in there, and also like the implication that there's some like that fan fiction is part of like some deep like human tradition going back to like myths and religious texts, right? Because I've thought that too. Like, it feels to me that a lot of like this superhero bullshit that we're so obsessed with is not in any way like fundamentally different than like you know, the Iliad or the Odyssey or something. And that this weird, you mentioned like the weird like pseudo religious, pseudo sexual fervor that people get into over like fandoms and their waifu or whatever, like that. It's wild. Like, it was like the perfect, just fantastic piece is what I'm trying to say.
Thank
Also,
you.
just a note, our October submission, I don't know if you found a home for it yet, but our October submission theme is cosplay, and that's oddly on point, but I won't belabor that.
That's a good point. I might submit. I'm still not sure if it's done or not yet. I think I got to give it a couple more read throughs. Oh, what? Don't wait. Okay. Yeah. God. The Sherlock Holmes Dick Shredder was a genuine person. I miss that woman every day. I don't know where she is.
Like that, like I don't know if was the entire Sherlock Holmes piece like about him like surgically removing his his member. Was that based on a real fan fiction piece?
Well, so the way that a kink meme works is that someone will make a request and then you can write a fic for it. So there was
Gotcha.
somebody who like every once in a while would come on and say, can you do this? And it was always somebody, she had I think like she genuinely did have this fetish. And like a couple of people, like after she posted a couple of times, were like, okay, since this is like since this is the tone of the meme now, here's a couple more. And we were like, it's not the same, it's different. And then she came back.
I mean, I guess it's just that is so like oddly perfectly on brand for the character. Like, I really appreciate, as a teenager, I read like all of Doyle's Holmes stories, and like I really appreciate that it's like the perfect like intermingling of like the pathology of that fetish with like the weird pathology of the character. I don't know. It's just so dead on perfect. Um,
Yeah, so
oh,
as the
sorry.
only person with a My Little Pony avatar, I feel like I should say something about that. And that was just an amazing piece that I love how like you take, you know, the how you focus on how like at the same time stuff like Archive of Our Own or fan fiction sites like or Tumblr is like an important movement, but at the same time it's really like weird and just out there, and it has its own canon. Like the way you juxtapose the religious references, you know, to the idea of like a canon from fan fiction, I really loved that. That was great.
I also recommend that everyone actually go on AO3 and look at the Bible fandom tags.
I'll have to now.
So I was laughing so hard I started to cough, which is probably not a great thing under the circumstances. So I think we'll move on. Rudy, Eris, or you were up next, I think. Oh, Eris, your
Yeah.
mic is muted.
I would love to. Please stop moving.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
My bad.
It's,
my God.
it's fine. Everyone loves you. Okay. All right. So I want to read Joyride because I'll tell you why after. Why am I wearing this stupid? No, I'm not. Okay. Cool. Okay. Mozart, Joyride. Out of curiosity, what is this? I'm gonna be a narcissist. What story do you know me most for, if you know me at all?
What
Well,
Okay,
you're a
story?
writer.
Oh,
totally fine.
sorry.
What? No, I don't need you to know me. That's great. Honestly. Truly. Okay. So Joyride by me. Okay. Fun fact, JKC thought of the title because I hate thinking of titles. Okay. Kimberly screams into my ear with all the loudness. How's my mic? Or nah? Hello? Did everyone die?
Sound good to me.
Okay, cool. Screams into my ear with all the loudness of her voice tuned to the frequency of my cell phone. Fuck your plans. I can't be alone right now. Her sentences are punctuated by the sound of her snorting lines. We're 16 with too much free time. Does that count as young adult fiction?
Does that count as young adult fiction?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really sure it probably depends on who you're talking to, right? I'm not sure where you draw the line at young adult fiction. For me, like young adult fiction has just become like a term to describe shit I don't like. In that case, it's not young adult fiction.
Yet. Okay. We're 16 with too much free time. Kimberly slides her finger across the skin above her lip and licks the coke that dribbled out of her nose. She just had a big fight with her boyfriend, John, who is 45 years old. Kimberly says she needs somebody to go with her to Hollywood to deal with this fucking bullshit. She meets me at my house. I'm wearing jeans and a heatherette tank top with a diamond graphic that says diamonds are a girl's best friend. And expensive hair extensions. They kind of take hours to put in. We make the easy 1 mile trek to her house so we can get properly dressed up. Kimberly's house is disheveled. The house is filled with things and creepily devoid of people. I've never met Kimberly's parents. The things are everywhere. Dusty Chanel purses and indifferent designer cosmetics. Her phone rings, the ringtone indiscernible over the blasting MGMT record. She violently motions for me to switch off the stereo so she can put John on speakerphone. We're going to the beach, she informs us. Get ready. She crushes up some blow with a MAC compact and does a line, her anger switching off instantly. She resurfaces on the genial, how do you say that? Thank you. Plateau of euphoric haze. She throws some Marlboro Reds into one of her Chanel purses, and soon we get picked up by John in his red BMW. My hair is flying everywhere. We are driving fast, fast, fast. The world around me shaded dark through Valentino butterfly shades. Kimberly tells me she loves me. We pull up to John's house, hop out of the BMW, and get into his Escalade. Kimberly lights up a cig. Oh my god, I need to change that to cigarette. Jesus. All right. She brags about her matches from Vegas and how fast they light up. I read all the stickers in the garage. Something about empowering girls and donating to Africa. Do you have any kids? I asked John. The seats are beige leather, soft, smooth. It feels like a spaceship, somewhere to hide from the dry heat of the San Fernando Valley. Yeah, he says, a daughter, Amanda, she's 16. We leave and stop at a liquor store. Kimberly and I are in need of some eyeliner, but I can't find any. I ask if we're going to get drunk at the beach. Kimberly says yes, which sounds pretty nice to me. It's a long drive to the beach from the valley. So John stops in the parking lot to make us some drinks in the car. I drink whatever John mixes. Vodka and red Gatorade. And it's strong. The lack of food replaced with diet pills, and diet pills makes me dizzy. We're drinking out of red cups, and we stay in the liquor store parking lot until the cups are empty because we don't want to spill in the car. Kimberly and I take some Vicodin because it's there and it's free. She's more cautious than me and only swallows one once I have first. Back on the road, we're listening to music and dancing in the leather seats and smoking when Kimberly picks up her jacket off the floor of the car, revealing 2 handguns and 1 shotgun. I've never seen a gun before, I say. You've never even held one? John says. I shake my head, hypnotized by the presence of a weapon I've only seen in movies. Can't stop staring at them, the shiny metal things half covered by Kimberly's soft yellow hoodie. 1, 2, 3. Have you ever killed anybody? I ask. He looks at Kimberly, then at me. Yes. John tells me that there are only 1,000 in the world with the shotgun and proceeds to put it in my hand. I laugh and tell him I've never held a gun before. He laughs and says he's not going to kill me. I keep nodding off and being woken up by John feeling at my thighs. We go to this restaurant in Malibu called Taverna Tony's. He gets a Jack and Coke and orders us 2 margaritas on the rocks. John knows Tony, so we meet him. John keeps showing off his status and saying how Brad Pitt goes to this restaurant, that we were at the best table. At this point, I am so drugged out. I ask anyone I see if I look cross-eyed because I am so dizzy. Kimberly's desire to go to Venice Beach is overpowered by her need to ride the Sea Dragon at Santa Monica Pier. We have a 5-minute argument about its actual existence, and then we're on our way. A sea dragon, yes, a sea dragon. She was so emphatic about it. I mean, this is fiction, or is it? Okay. We arrive at 3rd Street Promenade where John makes a reservation at Hotel California. I try to make the concierge believe John is my dad. He's my dad. But they just look at me for a second, me wobbling around with Kimberly, and then just ask John for his credit card. We go shopping. Thank you. We go shopping. Walking itself is a carnival ride, and Kimberly and I are both talking in amazingly convincing British accents. Obviously not, we're just fucking drunk. But he gets Kimberly a $300 dress at Mac's Studio, and then buys me $200 worth of Juicy Couture perfume and body wash at Sephora. After a few hours of going in each store with a quaintly lit promenade, we drive Kimberly back home. But I don't want this night to end. I want this glamorous days of drugs and shopping to go on forever. John drives me back to the hotel with him. In the car, John starts massaging my thigh at first, and smacks my crotch hard. At the hotel, John tries to fuck me, but I cover up my pussy and try to put a condom on. He looks momentarily sheepish, maybe even girlishly shy, like a little kid in trouble. I ask him if he has any STDs, and he gives me a look like, the most scandalous thing ever. Of course not, he says. And then I think of the guns. We fuck, and he constantly tells me he loves me, and how gorgeous I am, etc., etc. I play along, tell him I love his cock. I let him unzip my dress, and we fuck again while I stare at the beautiful Hotel California ceiling of mirage, a fish, and the attack of the 50-foot woman movie poster. I give him head, and I gag, and he pushes my head, and I throw up on his dick. My stomach is only vodka and pills, so nothing comes up but acidic water. Not that it even matters, because I lick it all back up. My body does not belong to me. It's not even attached to me. I'm floating. It ends, and I tell him I am leaving to walk back to Express to get my jacket since I left it there. I got it from Wasteland, and I really fucking like it. I do not come back. I am in Santa Monica, and everything is closed. And this means my only way of getting back home is calling my dad. Uber didn't exist. Nausea ripples through my body through the drive back to the house. I sit in the back and listen to oldies, KRS 101. I'm annoyed by the taste of salt on my lips and by how long the clean scent of ocean air lingers in the car. Okay, that's it.
That was great. Someone else said this. I think it was Jane said this in the chat, but that has really strong like 70s exploitation movie vibes to me, which and I mean that in like the kindest possible way. It's like literary exploitation stuff, and I think that it really like it has like such a perfect, wonderful sense of place too. Like yeah, like I think you really capture the like I don't know. I have a thing for like road trip fiction anyway. I think that like there's something innately like captivating about any kind of road trip fiction, but I think
Love,
what makes it
you
work.
have this one book by Sarah Gerard, Binary Star. You would love Binary Star then.
I'll definitely have to give it a shot. But I think what makes like good road trip fiction work is that sense. I think two things. One is like that precise sense of place, which you really capture. And two, I think it works best when there's this kind of sense of like poison nostalgia to it. And I think this piece has that as well. Like, one problem with like road trip fiction is it can get too saccharine on the one hand, or like too like
Live journaling.
clinical on the other, right? And I think you have to have a little bit of that like taste of nostalgia, that like youthful feeling about it, but you can't go too far with that. And I think yours, because there's this like menace hanging over the entire piece, and yet your narrator is like
She's
is a
16.
teenager, right? Yeah, exactly. And like, so you get that kind of youthful enthusiasm mixed with that sense of shit's about to go real sour any minute. And I think that it all hangs together perfectly because of that.
Gives the best compliments. Thank you.
I
All
also
right.
really like your how strong your visual set, like the
Oh,
visuals are in all of your writing, especially when in pieces like this it's primarily like feelings driven, which means that it comes across. I don't know if anybody else would agree with this, but for me personally, I always feel it as a sort of as like a color lens.
gag?
Like, sorry,
Did I make anyone kind of want to gag?
a little bit.
Brandon's like, not me. This is awesome. Okay.
But it feels like there's a filter on all of your work, but like an Instagram filter. Like everything has a certain color tone to it. I think I'm gonna go back to what people were saying about Jane's comment about it feeling like a blockbuster movie.
I'll tell you guys, that was an actual live journal entry from when I was 16, and Elle Nash helped me edit it. And that's yeah.
Really? Wow.
Wow, that's
Holy
awesome.
shit.
I wrote like a lesbian version of it. I wrote one with a version with it with snakes, but that yeah.
I wish I had
Here's the snake
that
version.
amount of precision in my writing at 16.
Oh no, like the original is a wreck, but now you guys know the secrets, and you should feel like you should go to this every week.
Still at 16, I was just like running D&D campaigns in my parents' den. So you still.
Oh, that's fucking rad. That's awesome. I was on LiveJournal. That's what I was doing.
So Rudy, do we have anyone else signed up for the open mic? Excuse me.
Yeah, it looks like Dawson is next.
Oh, cool.
Well, how are you holding up? Because I don't want to keep everybody here. If
No,
you're
I'm
not
good. I'm
feeling-
fine. I'm actually feeling pretty good now. I think this is me. Like, I don't know. You do something like this. It's fun. It gets you energized, and you don't think so much about it. But yeah, cool.
All right. Well, I'm going to read the start of something I finished today. It's called Beta Mail. So, what the interstate is depends on who you ask. Families on holiday can't help but see it as the stitches that keep the great American quilt of farmlands and ghettos, cities and small towns, from coming unraveled and going all helter-skelter. Politicians trot out that old cliche about blood vessels and arteries every so often when they're trying to convince working-class cavemen to vote for higher taxes. But ask any tired-eyed trucker and he'll tell you that really, the highway system is just one big fucking snake with its ass end in the Pacific and its head in the Atlantic, the mighty nationwide serpent. 5 years with the Ohio State Highway Patrol have me convinced it's the Silk Road reborn, a delivery system for every kind of illicit thrill you would care to mention, and even some you wouldn't. Cut rate hashish, naughty nubile nymphets, dope laced with fentanyl. I-75 has got you covered, baby. Brass assigned me to a stretch of road between Toledo and Bowling Green right out of the academy. A prized piece of real estate for a young trooper looking to make a name for himself, which I was. Back then, Toledo was a hub for pill pushers, crack chemists, and every other pharmacy school fuck-up turned drug lord the Midwest had to offer. Bowling Green was, and is, a college town. At the start of every academic year, the place fills up with blue-haired acid freaks and metal-faced pinkos looking to get high, the demand of Toledo's supply. They were all piss easy to catch. I usually caught them going north towards Toledo. Sure, they'd call you pig and snort behind your back as you passed them in town, or at the gas station, but they're on the highway where it actually fucking mattered. They'd break down. I made lieutenant in 3 months off of pasty white liberal arts majors and their mousy little gender studies girlfriends. The real danger was in the southbound traffic. That's where you'd pull couriers, real hardened gangbangers, and junkies on the way back from a score. They knew they were fucked if they got stopped, so they were inclined to start shooting as soon as the red and blue lights showed up in the rear view. Even then, they were easy enough to deal with. All I had to do most times was rest my hand on my piece for them to get the message. I lost track of how many arrests I made, let alone stops, but I always did things by the book. I was forceful and authoritative without being arrogant. I turned the other cheek when teenagers flipped me the bird for kicks. Hell, I even made sure to capitalize black in my incident reports. It became routine, habit. And maybe that's why what happened happened. It was Friday night. The car was headed south, really tear-assing it down the highway. I didn't need the radar gun to know that I could nail the guy for reckless op. I flicked on the lights and siren, but he kept right on going. Cars around us darted out of our way, all lit up and luminescent in the dark like those deep-sea fish. The chase went on for about a mile before I finally forced him into the median. After all that, it felt like an anticlimax when I ran his plate and came up with nothing. The car belonged to a Maple Stillman. No outstanding warrants, no record, nothing. The only fault I could find with her was that hippie-ass name, and I couldn't very well blame her for that. I couldn't figure out why she hadn't stopped, unless Miss Stillman wasn't the one behind the wheel. I unbuttoned the strap of my holster. Walking up to the car, I knew something wasn't right. Over the ting, ting, ting of the engine cooling off, I could hear whoever was inside the car yelling at somebody else. I knocked on the driver's side window and it rolled down almost instantly. "Can I help you, officer?" a voice said from within. I looked inside, saw a white man who in all likelihood was not named Maple. He reached for the glove compartment and I took a step back to get into the Weaver stance just as the semi merged into the right lane. My dash cam recorded the whole thing. 1 minute I'm standing outside the car telling the asshole inside to keep his hands where I can see him, and the next I'm getting tossed across the interstate like a fucking rag doll. Another blood clot in the nation's arteries. Laying there on the asphalt, I pictured my funeral, the pallbearers lowering me into the ground beside my mom, all the girls I'd ever known dressed out in black and weeping for love lost, and best of all, Dad standing over my grave, saying that I should have listened to him and gone into electrical engineering instead of going out and playing cowboy like I did. The last thing I saw before blacking out was the car's bumper disappearing into the night. At least the governor would probably rename the stretch of road to Lieutenant Simon C. Dobbs Memorial Highway in my honor. And that's the end of the first section.
I love a good unreliable narrator. And I love a subtle unreliable narrator where you half buy his bullshit on one hand, and on the other hand, you know he's fucking with you. And that had that vibe perfect. Like, just where you know this guy's a jackass, right? On the one hand, but he's a persuasive jackass. And the voice, you nailed the voice. And the little like police details that you integrated in there, like you could feel, it felt really authentic, you know?
Well, thank you. I've been reading a lot of Jim Thompson, and some of that is from when I was going to be a cop. So.
Oh man, awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of details there that there's a state trooper here that strongly reminds me of, and he's in my town, and I can basically see his face when you read that. So,
oh, thank you.
That's definitely very very on point for some of the like the mentality of some of the people who work in that line.
Yeah, the best way to get disillusioned with that shit is to start actually trying to become one. So, well, thank you.
So, Rudy, is Jane up next? Is that what I saw?
Yep.
Jane, are you with us?
I am.
Cool.
Hello.
Take it away.
Yeah, I also got COVID tested today, and the pieces that I'm going to read are fairly wordy in a way, so I'm going to post them in the chat here in case anyone could use a little assistance, because I don't know how my delivery will be. These are going to be...
Oh, sorry. Are you symptomatic or?
I was like sneezing a lot and like bad throat, which like what's new, but since I don't smoke cigarettes, I figured I should check it out.
Yeah, definitely. Better safe than sorry. That's kind of where I was, where it was like, I had this cough that just would not go away. And I was like, oh, it's probably nothing. But my roommate's like, no, you need to go to the doctor. And sure enough, the doctor was like, well, you need to get tested. And so you had the probe shoved up your nose then too?
I did, yeah. It was my second time having it done, and I felt like the first time wasn't that bad, so I let my guard down, and it was really rough this time. They did it like twice as long, and I started crying.
Oh,
Like,
God. All right. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Wait, what?
You're not allowed to die. I like you.
I don't think I'm going to die
You can't die. Okay?
soon. I'm going to die at some point, but
I mean, like, I didn't mean it like that. Whatever. Okay. Don't die.
yeah. Thank you. But anyway, so going to be a couple of pieces from a collection that someone posted on Surfaces recently called 5 Product Reviews. And this first one I'm going to read is called David Rothko's Remake of the Bible. You might remember how within hours of David Rothko's remake of the Bible being released, everyone was asking each other who the lover he had named Melissa might be, this openly acknowledged pseudonym weaving her way through the rise and fall of each chapter. All the sensitive young men, as well as a good number of shit-headed ones and more than a few lesbians, were ready to fall in love with her, which felt like an implausible but statistically mentionable possibility for those in social circles adjacent enough for her to have been cast into, since of course Rothko had had to promptly shed her the way a red carpet dress must be discarded once the commoners have glimpsed it. I want to be able to Dr. Frankenstein a few of the more prominent takes on this matter together into something resembling an original one, so as to perpetuate the smokescreen the whole affair serves as, but should otherwise attempt to remain fully unconcerned with the gossip. Your attention will need to be focused on posture, whether on the bus, in the cafe, among socialites, in the bedroom. You must be able to optimally frame the book's cover, its wash of blue, green, orange, each in several shades, and most of all, the incredibly chic, reflective pink lettering. Optimally framed here doesn't mean to simply draw attention to the book. It does that well enough on its own, but to direct this guaranteed attention in such a way that people notice how you're reading it. The way the lettering brilliantly ricochets light may also be used for hypnosis or as a weapon, if one finds the right dark web tutorials. Once you've fully mastered the work's distractive properties, you can begin to drift through those subtle passages where Rothko threads associations between the crush of objects we all find ourselves surrounded with, building not quite a hierarchy, but something not particularly distant from one either, undoing, 1, Jesus' dissolving of Hebrew law into an existential demand to love, and 2, Peter's subsequent ecstatic vision where he reinterprets this dissolving as invitation to consume every part of the world at leisure. I'm gonna go off camera 1 second to blow my nose.
Jane, this is so good. I'm contemplating just peeing in a cup. I don't want to leave. Also, it's terrible going to my door, but yeah.
Oh, thank you. I've definitely done that for things that I don't want to leave from. But also if I don't not leave from pieces for that, it's nothing personal. Anyway, the second one is called My Narrative-Oriented Brain. My narrative-oriented brain is no good. The seller won't respond to my requests for new product. It endlessly spins my surroundings into cascading networks of characters, events, plot pacing, potential climaxes. It never deigns to etch out as much as half a sentence. How can this not count as misregulation when it leaves me with such a severe heart, such a nervous system, such a terribly upset stomach? And I'm gonna skip these next two because they're the really hard ones to read, and skip to the last one, which is called Molly Hayes' Third Left Finger. I was dancing alone in the club, as I had learned to love. My muscles expanded, contracted, coordinated with each other and with the lights, the sounds, the fancies of my mind, and the energy of the crowd, but none of the individuals within it. My monastic avoidance entirely by design, a prerequisite for this sort of soft onanism. The 3 or 4 drugs I was on conspired to distort, collapse, compress my whole life into an entirely contingent journey to the point I was at now, ecstatically exploring what I could do with the body and mind left to me by the sum of each prior instant, reveling in this opportunity to a degree that redeemed them all. But then, I felt someone reach around me, and as Molly Hayes' third left finger brushed down my right cheek, my dancing and the life that led to it revealed themselves as a prelude that had finally ended. We danced, without touching, except a brief intertwining of hands, where I noticed the polish on Molly Hayes' third left finger as a kind of omnicolored void I could stare into indefinitely, even as it simultaneously matched the sheer black of her other nails. There was no time to explore this paradox. The symmetry of our dancing I somehow took for granted. What really struck me was the way that my drug-addled impressions were giving way to a new lucidity that had nothing to do with the bland empirical soundness of sober life. In fact, I was missing plenty of my surroundings now that I had learned the meaning of priority. I could tell she viewed the club as something purely functional by how quickly she suggested we make an exit. And given all of my nostalgia for the place, was impressed by how easily I managed to view it the same way, swiftly following her lead. Her apartment, she told me, was just a block away, and she grabbed my hand to lead me there in a dash, a cut forming across my palm as she did, surely caused by Molly Hayes' third left finger. Our transition from travel to sex was imperceptible, but as hasty as it all seemed, I could feel nothing but anticipation, conscious that her whole body up to her right hand, 3 left fingers, and thumb were teasingly substituting for the real subject. And then, suddenly, Molly Hayes' third left finger entered my asshole as nonchalantly as a flirty text exiting a screen it had been sent from, and my whole body started skittering like the countless points of light birthed and extinguished through the fiber cable transmitting that text. Coming was an incidental component of a general program of escape attempted by my body. Between fucks, Molly Hayes' third left finger replaced language for me as it pecked me all over the length of my body. Between fucks didn't last nearly long enough, even as it lasted much too long. This kind of contradiction seemed as simple as the polish on Molly Hayes' third left finger. We Aruba roast, sucking each other's self-loathed cocks with abandon, but even as our traumatic adrenaline peaked, I was hopelessly distracted by my pining for Molly Hayes' third left finger. Finally, it entered me, that opalescent nail ripping a chunk of flesh out of my outer right thigh, my whole self writhing to make up for the conventional climax already having long been spent, a conventional climax managing an appearance anyway for the special occasion. She came simultaneously, and I hastily wiped the cum from my eyes so that I could watch what that third left finger was getting up to. She took the sample to her kitchen to cook and eat, but her third left finger remained conspicuously and tragically uninvolved in this process. Even aware of how naive I was being, I was powerless not to imagine Molly Hayes' third left finger twirling my hair while I reformatted the whole encounter, rendering it relatively sanitary, surprising as it may be to hear that description applied to these unrefined poetic entrails. But, predictably, she started to leave, and able to summarize a believable complaint through my bitterness, I pointed out that she hadn't even washed her hands, that I didn't care how many devaccinated particles she displaced across my individuated body, but just what kind of circuit was she carrying my cells into? 9 nails pierced my throat, but in neither that moment, nor following my instantaneous transformation into corpse, did Molly Hayes' third left finger ever reside in me again. And that's it.
The first piece you read, the David Rothko's remake of the Bible piece, that was like legitimately like Nabokovian. and you probably know this, but that's like the highest compliment I can give a piece of writing. I like that it's like so perfectly. So Nabokov's best work is like at once like metafictional and grounded in like these amazingly beautiful, precise details, and just like the way that you write about the cover of the book, I was like, holy shit, like that's Nabokov right there. Like, I don't know that there aren't many authors who have that very precise attention to those details, and also like capture like the like psychological like dynamism of those details. You're not just describing a book cover, you're describing the unique and like subtly pathological state of mind evoked by the book cover. And that's Nabokov through and through. I love that piece. That piece was fucking wonderful.
Hey, thank you. I've only read Lolita, but it's like an absolutely brilliant book. Yeah, and one I've definitely taken a lot of inspiration from.
I'm never mentioning that thing again. I'm so sick of myself talking about it. Okay, anyway.
What thing are you never mentioning again?
Podcast. Oh god.
Oh yeah, you should definitely have Rudy and I on the podcast at some point.
Okay,
I see Rudy volunteered in the chat.
Okay, I'll shut up about it though. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. As far as you mentioned Lolita in there, at one point in time I was going to do like a series of YouTube videos trying to like dissect Lolita because I'm so obsessed with it, and it just never happened. I tried to record one and I just rambled for an hour on the first chapter, and it's like, this is, what the fuck are you doing? And so I never ended up doing it. But it is just a fascinating, like, I don't know. It is. There's just so fucking much going on with that book.
I'll pay you. I need to shut up. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Rudy, has anyone else signed up to read?
I don't think so, but if somebody else wants to jump in, they can.
Oh, okay. How about someone picks a word from misery tourism and then they go on? Because like one time I just searched in suicide on expat and misery tourism and I got great results.
Yeah, you'll searching suicide on misery tourism will return a substantial body of work.
Yeah, you get yeah, I love it. And you know why, because all of like stuff is great. And then on expat it's like suicide Olympics and then then anti-suicide thing.
So
yeah. So pick a word, someone, and then I'll read it, or someone else can do something. What?
Oh.
Okay. All right, go for it.
Well, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, she said last words.
Last words. So can you? I'm not quite sure. So you want to pick a word and then search on misery tourism and see what comes up? Is that the? And then you're going to read the random piece. Is that what we're doing?
My idea more or less was like the last words of whatever article. You know what I mean? Last couple sentences.
What about but? I don't know. Maybe it's gonna come up both. What do you, Rudy?
Hmm?
I always just pick on you. I'm sorry. What do you suggest?
For a word?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put
Okay, that's a good one.
Nothing comes up.
Nothing comes out. How about John?
On what?
John?
Oh, excellent. Okay. With an H or what? Or no? Okay.
Sorry, Aris, I'm having some trouble hearing you. You might be a little bit far from your mic.
What about now?
That's much better.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll just stay here. I'm not even gonna look at what I look like. Okay. Ooh, that sounds fun. The Hollywood Saturnalia Shuffle, co-starring Carmen Hayes, The Trouble with Cindy Joe.
Oh yeah, that's oh my gosh. I've forgotten his name. Phil really, oh my gosh, what's
Or Messiah Online or Pomegranate. All these look so good. A Twitter Meltdown. Oh, I love this one so much, but it's like kind of long, so I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the author of I'm really bad with names tonight, but I'm pretty sure the author of Pomegranate read it on Misery Loves Company a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And
Messiah Online is a longer piece.
And then there's The Deluge After the Ice And John Adams wrote Paper Nest, A Twitter Meltdown.
That totally up to you. Whatever, just pick one and.
On Louis C.K.
Oh no, that's mine. That's one of mine.
Okay. Fun fact. It's probably a lie, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, okay. Misery Tourism's theme for November is abandoned work. What follows, if I don't give up now, is not an exercise in automatic writing so much as it is. How pissed were you when you wrote this?
How pissed was I? I wasn't really that angry when I wrote it. I was like more I don't know what the word would be, like
Tell me what
mournful.
I-
There's a lot of shit about death in there.
Okay, let me change this. I'm not gonna change the filter. There's not enough. Okay. An exercise in agonized writing, the act of writing as self-imposed torture. That's why I love writing. Writing without planning or outline, because otherwise I would write nothing. Writing is a thing I don't really want to write. Ooh. A thing that violates my aesthetic / artistic principles / pretensions, because what the fuck else am I supposed to do? Because I wanted to see my own name on my own site again, because content. I'm kind of making you sound not as nice as you are, but it's really fun.
No, I think it's about right.
Oh, all right, okay. And the clock is ticking. What a cliche. I went to see Louis C.K. perform in Richmond last Saturday, November 2nd, 10 p.m. EDT. Well, it was at least 10:30 by the time the opening comics performed, probably 11 by the time Louis emerged. The second show, the first night of his first official, not being called to come back, certainly not an apology tour, since he was accused of, and admitted to, masturbating in front of, you know this already, I'm sure. I don't, but I don't really. It's fine. I'll look it up later. It's currently Thursday, November 7th, 3:05 EST. I had to Google EDT versus EST to figure out which was which. Thank you for pointing out the PST, because I would have no idea when this was.
I never know which one we're in. I always just have to Google it to make sure I'm not putting the wrong one in whatever I'm writing.
God bless you. I don't know. Yeah. Point is, we all turned the clock back Sunday morning. Over 4 days have passed. The hot take window has closed. Who can say if this piece will attract any search traffic at all? The stakes are high. I like this. But I've noticed a dearth? You can tell I never go outside. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's dearth, but I'm always using words in my writing that I can't pronounce, and I'm like, well, because you never imagine yourself having to read it, so it's just like, well, make sure you spell it right.
Yeah, it's like the epitome of ethereal. Oh God, ethereal. This is terrible to even say. The New York Times ran an intellectually incoherent review. If you're watching this, that was me. Not a will. Okay. An intellectually incoherent review of CK's Richmond set that is valuable mostly as a case study in cognitive dissonance. Watch as the columnist tries desperately to square his past admiration for Louis' work and the fact that he obviously laughed his fucking ass off. Watch too as I type those words come out in full for probably the first time in my life in defiance of their acronymal.
Acronymal? I don't know. That's a neologism, so I think I get to pronounce it however I want. So you could just take it away.
Acronymal form, which I know how to say completely well because reasons. And with his internalized ideological priors and his desire to continue to write about comedy for the New York Times, The Atlantic uploaded a think piece this morning that strains to make a comparison between CK's return to comedy and President Trump's immoral solipsism, and which, aside from some enjoyable play with the similarity between the words apologetic and apoplectic, is in its attempt to frame the difference between Louis's immediate response to his alleged / admitted misdeeds and his current material is essentially void of any value. Also, in spite of the piece's timing, the author seems to be writing in response to CK's leaked performance from a few months ago, and not his current set. So that diminishes the value of the article now, in this moment already past, even more. I like how it's like you would think you're writing, it's like you're writing about a dead horse, but you're absolutely not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. This piece was really like a piece of like, you can't really call it automatic writing because it like took me a ridiculously long amount of time to write it, and it was very tortured. But it was just like, I'm just gonna keep writing and see what comes out, basically.
Awesome. I feel like such an asshole for not reading it sooner, but now like I'm loving it. So yeah. Okay. There's an opening, is what I'm saying. There's an opportunity to capitalize on the fact that my longtime favorite comedian's sexual compulsions have rendered him persona non grata. Wait, there's a Bright Eye song.
Yeah,
I'm saying
Persona
it,
non grata.
am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That
Among the
new Bright Eyes album is fucking great, by the
But
way.
they're really
And I'm not a Bright Eyes fan. Not to, I don't know. I'm interrupting you reading my own work. I don't know.
no.
I'm a huge Bright Eyes fan, but I don't take offense.
That
Can
I think this is like the most.
and then played the Bright Eyes album while it was still in the room.
This is like the most narcissistic thing I could imagine. I'm interrupting someone reading my own work to make that's just this is very awkward.
No. What's awkward is like not you. Trust me. Okay. Enjoy the narcissism, man. Maybe it's like a. Don't make me go astrological, please. Oh God. Okay. No time to unmix my metaphors. Gotta get this up tomorrow. Wait, that's not even a mixed metaphor. It's some other idiotic error in speech. No, not speech. Why writing? Oh well. About his transgressive brilliance. Love M dashes, by the way. Be careful, I guess, when, where, how, and with whom you transgress. Good advice. There is a vacuum to fill with my inane opinion. There are clicks to be harvested. No, we do not run ads, but eyes are eyes. And I'm as lonely and needy as any recent Bard graduate. Sorry, that just really gets me. Writing for Slate. I'm crying. I'm laughing more. And then, and like them, so. And then someone else's hard work is subsidizing my silly, egocentric dream. So, all right, the show. They made us seal away our phones in yonder pouches, a sort of miniature teal highlighted gray body bag with an electric lock. This is apparently a common precautionary measure for concerts and live performances of all varieties. I say apparently, because you can actually, oh, thank you for being one of those people that can pull off parentheses. A lot of people can. Yeah. So good job on that. I'm not trying to diss anyone else. Anyway, because it was my first experience with it, but as you can probably guess, I do not get out much. But there seemed to be an extra layer of paranoid urgency in its application here. I love that phrase, layer of paranoid urgency. Louis actually paused his set soon after he started to point out a person in the audience who was openly using his phone. Look at him. He's not even trying to hide it. I don't know how he sounds, really. Someone please take that from him. Louis asked in a tone that, honestly, sounded more conciliatory / embarrassed and demanding. Sorry, man. If I let you have that, I'm dead. I should mention here that any quotes in this article are reconstructed, probably poorly, from memory. Since not only were phones prohibited, but note-taking of any kind as well. What? Really? They search you for pens?
Sorry, what was? Sorry, I missed that.
They don't allow you to take notes of any kind?
No, there was actually a like I don't remember. I'm trying to remember the piece. Um,
Oh, I can link it. I'm
there
so
was
sorry.
basic. No, I'm trying to remember the going to the show. It was basically an NDA or some kind of a thing at the beginning where you weren't. They Well, first of all, they, like I said in the piece, they like took your phone and basically sealed it in like this foam body bag so that you couldn't possibly record the show. And they told you you weren't allowed to take any notes of the show. And some reporters were saying that they were instructed not to repeat any of his jokes verbatim because they were intellectual property.
Cross shot right now.
I mean, the point basically was that he didn't, because that recording of his set had leaked a few months before when he was doing like these small clubs, he basically didn't want any verbatim reporting on the contents of this tour because he was afraid of it was going to be more, lead to more bad press, more scandalous kind of shit.
Rudy, and if you're there, I might cough and need you to say the N word for me. I don't know if you'll be able to, are willing to.
Wait, to say the N-word? I get to say the N-word?
Aren't you black?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I
Oh
wanna say
God,
the
and it's gonna be coming from a My Little Pony.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, so I'll write the show and then you can't. I say apparently because it was my first experience with it. But as you can probably guess, I do not get out much. And oh wait, no, sorry, I was here. Oh no, I scrolled. Okay. While I was waiting for the show to begin, rewind. Sorry, sometimes you have to sacrifice strictly chronological progression for the thematic unity of ideas. You couldn't have just said nonlinear. You had to do that. That was amazing. I love that. Stand-up is really just a series of digressions after all. I listened to a man and woman. I have to pee so badly. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to? I would take you guys to the bathroom. I would. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to finish it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Where were we?
Here.
Should I start it while I was waiting for the show to begin? Rewind, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's about where we were.
Yeah, I think it was about there.
Correct.
While I was waiting for the show to begin, rewind. Sorry, sometimes you have to sacrifice strictly chronological progression for the thematic unity of ideas. Stand-up is really just a series of digressions, after all. I listened to a man and woman behind me talking. The man was definitely older than the woman, who said something about being a college undergraduate. And it wasn't clear to me, profound social retard that I am, whether they had met or had come together about their anticipation. They both admire Louis' past work. There was, of course, a discussion of the controversy. What he had done was bad, but the woman took the lead here. If you love comedy, you have to be able to tolerate the offensive things. The man brought up Dave Chappelle and Sarah Silverman's joke that it was appropriate that he should win the Mark Twain Prize, since both men had such love of the N-word. The man didn't say, of course.
Bigger.
And surprisingly, apparently, neither did Silverman. Though I guess even the most fearless comedians hedge a bit when they're presenting a colleague with a prestigious award. In fact, he seemed uncomfortable to be discussing it all. We have a terrible room. He hesitated in a way we all do when we've been betrayed by our brain's unconscious aptitude
for associational conversation and bumbled into an area where we cannot predict our ancestors' priors or peccadillos. hopefully I said that right. I don't remember how his companion responded. I was thinking about how pre-scripted it all seemed. The discourse had arrived before them. They had memorized talking points. They were regurgitating apologia for an artist who had already apologized for himself in a room of people who had paid $50 a head to see him perform. There were no hecklers in the audience, by the way. No protesters outside. They were offering justifications in anticipation of objections. Oh, I love that. That flowed so beautifully. That no one present was interested in making, except maybe that dude from the New York Times, seated anonymously among us, probably mentally preparing to calibrate his laughter to meet his social expectations. Just in case he was recognized. Sorry. But fuck that. Let's talk about the show. Over 1,000 words and no actual discussion of CK's routine yet. A masterclass in procrastination. Oh, I love that sentence. I'm going to avoid spoiling the jokes to the best of my ability, in part because I hope one day Louis releases the stand-up special. Maybe just on his website, like, his mock televised pseudo stage play, Horace and Pete. Oh, that's brutal. I love that. If HBO and Netflix are not interested, I need to read that again. His mock televised pseudo stage play. And you can
Just for the
appreciate
record, Louis actually did end up releasing a stand-up special just on his website at some point months after this, but he's not been asked, I think, by HBO or Netflix to do one for obvious reasons.
That's such an
Has
epic.
anyone ever wondered why he did PewDiePie, or not PewDiePie, but PewDiePie?
Who the hell?
Sorry, what was that?
Anyone ever wondered, like, why he directed that?
I have really good burps. I'm sorry.
It's about a black guy.
Derek, yeah, it was basically the same. I haven't, I didn't buy the stand-up special on his website, but from the reviews I saw, it was basically the same set that I saw, yeah.
Do you want to say, like, what was the, I think you should read it and, like, unleash some vitriol. But if that's too peer pressure, I can keep reading it. I'm enjoying it. So it's whatever you want.
Sorry, I didn't quite, you want me, do you want me to pick up where you left off? Is that?
Only if you, like, unleash the vitriol.
I don't know that I can pick up where you left off, but I don't know that I'll be releasing much besides phlegm tonight, but
Unleash
let's
it.
see.
Oh, I do that every day, all day.
So,
Why are so many people phlegmy? It's great. Me,
were you on But Fuck That? Is that roughly where we were?
oh, but fuck that. Let's talk about the show.
Okay. Okay, but fuck that. Let's talk about the show. Over 1,000 words and no actual discussion of CK's routine yet. A masterclass in procrastination. I'm going to avoid spoiling the jokes to the best of my ability, in part because I hope one day Louis releases a stand-up special, maybe just on his website, like his mock televised pseudo stage play Horace and Pete, if HBO and Netflix are not interested. And you can appreciate them for yourself, untainted by my awkwardness. Untainted by my awkward, as I am in all things, including reading that line apparently, retelling, but also because the purchase of my tickets apparently came with a fine print stipulation that I not reproduce any of his jokes verbatim under threat of legal action. Yikes. So, without spoiling any punchlines, here's a rough summary of CK's performance. A big chunk of the set, maybe a quarter or so, was about his mother's death and his own mortality, and the rest of it seemed to be trying out every possible permutation of offensive joke imaginable. He joked about 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombing, Africans who believe having sex with babies is a cure for AIDS, the use of the word retard, bestiality, pedophilia, separate from the African bit, The whole masturbating in front of women thing, Mormons, the Holocaust, suicide bombers, getting 72 virgins in heaven, gay men enjoying sex less now that it's socially acceptable, blackface, and an extended bit that involves speaking in an exaggerated Asian accent. Notably absent from the routine was the bit about Parkland school shooting survivors turned activists that was the subject of a brief but intense media freakout when an unsanctioned recording of one of Louis' sets leaked a few months ago. Given the material that did make the cut, I don't think the Parkland material was excised out of concern for good taste, but rather because, well, it wasn't particularly funny. Mea culpa, aside from the parenthetical, most of the previous paragraph is an act of self-plagiarism. I stole it from a forum post I made the day after I attended the show. I can feel the differences in diction caused by a difference in anticipated audiences between it and the rest of the article. It's painful. But deadlines, even self-imposed, demand concessions. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Took a break here, had dinner. Lunch? I woke up at noon. I quit my job and moved over a month ago. The passage of time is already losing its coherence and meaningfulness. I spent however long playing Yoshi's Crafted World on my Switch and listening to old episodes of Siskel and Ebert on YouTube. Well, certainly there won't be any new ones. Gene Siskel was the first celebrity, ? I admired as a kid who died suddenly and relatively young. No, I'm wrong. Phil Hartman was murdered less than a year before Siskel died. I always preferred him to Roger Ebert. Now, in retrospect, frankly, he seems like kind of a moron. Ebert gets the better of most of their exchanges, but his critiques, too, often feel shallow and superficial. Still, it's nostalgic, comforting. I have a headache. Not sure if I'll resume this tonight. It's 8:43 now. No idea what I'm getting at in writing this. Some kind of a satire of the way profit-motivated click-farm criticism and reputation-obsessed writers and our love of pre-digested canned cultural commentary obfuscate art? My head is throbbing. I wish this was satirical. This sort of self-indulgent detour would fit nicely, even if there's an obviousness about the headache as distractions. The old, not tonight, I have a headache excuse is almost too perfect a fit, given some of the subtext here. But no, I'm in actual physical pain. I, the human being typing this right now, am suffering. Can you feel it? No, probably not. Was pacing around my apartment, trying to get my head clear, when I got the following push notification on my phone. Netflix pulls stand-up special by Christian comedian John Crist after allegations of sexual misconduct. From the AV Club. Love the interplay between Christian and Christ. But yeah, Christ, or hell, whatever. How can we hope to keep pace with human depravity? Who has the energy to read this shit? My head is still pounding. Found a plastic skull on my kitchen table. Halloween was a week ago, but neither I nor my roommate had the physical or emotional energy to put it away somewhere yet. This article is about death now. Certainly many of Louis' best jokes were. A bit about imagining an undertaker having sex with his mom's corpse. The image of his mom in a body bag rolling around in the back of a beat-up van with a half-empty bottle of Gatorade. Louis himself wandering around a cemetery, trying to find the grave of someone born the same year as him who died after him. There's certainly some obvious statement to be made here about how watching his career almost end forced his comic to come to face death's inevitability. But come on, Louis 53, a year younger than Gene Siskel was, 3 years older than Hartman, 7 years younger than my parents, 18 years, the age of consent, older than me. Professional trials aside, it's natural that he should be thinking about mortality. Aha, you're saying, I've got you figured out. That's what this is. It's about the death of an idol. All these rationalizations, you just don't want to bury a man you admire. You don't want to admit that his career is dead, that it was an execution, that he deserved it. It would probably be easier for you if he was dead, because then you could say, no living person benefits when I consume this art I love. Who cares about the sins of a dead man? The dead get no royalties. But you can't say that now, and nah, I'm happy to see him perform again. I'm happy he's getting paid. They gave him a standing ovation when the show ended. I was the third, I think, person to stand. The first in my row. Someone yelled, "We love you, Louis!" That wasn't me. I didn't have that kind of courage. His had given me a lot of joy. Perverse joy, yes, but joy, joy, joy. I am afraid of death, though. Terrified. Just remember that it was a brain tumor that killed Gene Siskel. Ugh. Okay, let me spoil one punchline. There was an extended bit relatively early in the set about a wheelchair Louis saw in the display window of a drugstore. He wonders aloud about who the target audience of this advertising strategy could be. Is a wheelchair an impulse buy? And imagines a man, his legs paralyzed for years, dragging himself slowly and agonizingly down the street with his hands, only to see the wheelchair in the window and experience a moment of clarity as he realizes that there's a better way to live. The audience is laughing along. And then the kicker, Louis reveals that the imaginary man lost the ability to walk in the Boston Marathon bombing. His delivery is funnier than mine. Oh yeah, Louis heckles the crowd. You were ready to laugh at a cripple, but not this particular cripple. Once again, couldn't take notes, paraphrasing. Quick aside here, I didn't actually hear any boos or oh no's or any variety of gasp from the crowd after the twist. Maybe a groan or two. It's certainly possible that Louis was in a better position to read the crowd's response than I was. It's also possible, likely even, that the crowd being aghast at the joke's turn was baked into the bit, and he was responding to the crowd he needed, not the one he had. One of the few downsides of playing to a crowd composed exclusively of your most devoted, scandal-resistant fans. And one New York Times columnist. I didn't spoil this joke just to show you how poor my sense of comic timing is, although it's terrible. I think it serves as the closest thing to a thesis statement that you're likely to find for this post-cancellation stage of his career. Louis is probing the opaque, inconsistent nature of offensiveness itself. Taking for granted that the target of most of his humor is human suffering, why are we comfortable laughing at some tragedies and travesties, but not others? But speaking of these, wait, let me back up. I forgot that old rule of phoned-in undergraduate papers. You open by explaining the problem, or really, you open by explaining your audience's expectations, read, setting them, about how the problem will be solved, or at least explained, and then telling them directly that their expectations, which are actually yours, of course, are full of shit. Here, so you don't have to conjure them yourselves, are your assumptions. 1, Louis C.K. will do the good, conscientious thing and emerge from 2 years of quiet contemplation with a carefully considered set of self-aware and self-deprecating jokes rooted in his own humility and the ethical framework laid out by today's great moral philosophers in Vox, Vulture, Vice, and other comparable publications beginning with V. Or 2, he will become Milo Yiannopoulos. We know that option number 1 ain't happening, so it must be 2, right? Can you hear that flushing sound? But it's not that at all. There was no clear political valiance to his set at all. There was one, contrary to the opinion of the New York Times columnist, quite funny joke about cultural appropriation. But even that joke was just serving an age-old purpose of comedy, exposing and disarming your hypocrisy, insisting that we see reality through a lens other than that which we wear to work every day. Well, for those of us who are still working, or which we use to interpret our carefully curated social interactions. For those of you who still leave your apartments. Wow, you could tell this was written pre-pandemic. Stop. This is what I was trying to say. The paradigm is shifting. Louis' return, Sticks and Stones, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Jesus is King, the cascading death toll of publications dedicated to producing hot takes in much the same manner as factory-farmed eggs. This isn't some conservative backlash to woke leftism. None of these artists are conservative. You can't understand the significance of any of this with our current tired discursive framework. The phantasmagoric culture war that has dominated nearly all advertising, subsidized writing on popular culture for, I don't know, a decade maybe, is over. If you're reading this, you are free. It was all in your imagination. It was a dream. Recalibrate your conscience to new norms. Move the fuck on. Peace be with you, or some new socio-moral anxiety, if that's your preference. But no, really, the set was all about death. The final routine involves Louis pitching a Freaky Friday-esque body swap movie. Only this one isn't a comedy, it's a drama. Everyone in it is sad and scared, where a mother trades lives with her son. After a typically graphic aside, where the son's father comes home and has anal sex with the boy who he thinks is his wife, the son, Louis explains, feels terrible, but is too afraid of upsetting his father to put a stop to it. Louis reveals how his hypothetical film would end. They never switch back, and the son must live in his mother's body for the rest of his/her life. Empathy is no cure. There will always be one way out of this shit show, and whatever experiences we accumulate along the way, whatever we learn about ourselves and others, is just more baggage that we have to carry on our journey to become baggage ourselves. Another bulky item in a bag rolling around in the back of a nondescript van with an open bottle of Gatorade. Fuck it. It's a new day now. My headache is gone. And that's it. I'm not going to read the footnotes.
That's fucking brilliant as fuck.
So so anyway, did anyone else want to read?
That was so good.
Louis C.K.
The Gatorade. What's your favorite flavor of Gatorade?
What favorite flavor? Every flavor of Gatorade tastes the same, and you won't convince me otherwise.
What color? I like red.
Mine is the purple, I think.
See, the very fact that you're naming colors and not flavors tells me that is purely an aesthetic judgment.
But who are we if not aesthetic people?
All right, see you, Scott.
I generally agree with you that Gatorade all tastes the same, but I tried a flavor I'd never had before, cucumber lime. Tasted awful.
Some people actually died from. Fun fact.
Cucumber. What color was it?
It was green.
Green, huh?
Yeah. I was like, huh, never had this flavor before, and it tasted like the water that like sometimes collects on the bottom of dumpsters. It was that bad.
Oh boy.
I have to ask, have you tasted dumpster water?
Pleading the fifth on that one.
Okay. All right. Because I know the smell of dumpster water, and just imagining that as Gatorade is, ugh. All right. See you, Jane. So it seems like we're kind of emptying out a little bit here. So kind of last call here if anyone wants to read. If not, I'm going to end the recording. But if people want to stick around, I'll leave the chat open as usual. No? Okay. I think I'm going to call it a day there then. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone who read. If you're watching this at home and you made it through this whole thing, God bless you. But also, maybe come tune into one of these. Follow us on Twitter at Misery Tourism, and you'll see when we post a link to the next one. It's every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and I have no idea whether that's EDT or EST. All right, that's it.